My name is Donna Hooker, and I'm a career international educator with 30 plus years experience in a senior administrative role and 18 years teaching part-time. Today, I am the president of MSM Higher Ed Division. I'm very proud of the work that I've done throughout my career. I have recruited students and watched them grow from new arrivals to Canada to graduates. I've watched many of them develop into their careers, and in many cases, I've gone on to see them be married and even begin to raise families of their own. Over the years, I've met many parents who have been entrusted me to their children as they've sent them abroad to study. As a parent myself, I understand the magnitude of that decision in sending your children abroad. Today, I work with an amazing team of staff who support over 40 amazing institutions across the globe by building, training, and supporting an incredibly professional agent network. It's wonderful to have so many agents, parents, and prospective students with us today. The more we can learn about the experience of studying abroad before we travel, the better our experience is and the more successful we can be. Our speaker today is an old friend of mine from the education sector who is very well respected amongst educators across Canada. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Boris Remes. Boris left Kazakhstan as an international student at the age of 16. Fast forward to today, Boris is now an award-winning education marketer, an entrepreneur, a speaker, and author. He has supported over 1,000 international students who have had a strong desire to pursue their life dream in Canada. Over the years, many have asked him to share his strategies, his tactics and habits for personal and professional growth, which has motivated him to publish his first book, Start Right, Success Habits for International Students, which became a bestseller college guide on Amazon. Boris holds a Master's of Commerce with honors from the University of British Columbia and a Master's of Business Administration with distinction from the Schulich School of Business at York University. He is a proud Canadian who enjoys taking his family on adventure trips using miles and points, racing in triathlons, reading business and personal growth books, and practicing mindfulness and mediation. It's my pleasure, Boris, to welcome you today.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you for hosting me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Boris, I wonder if you can tell me, what was your experience like when you first came to Canada?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you again, Donna, for hosting me. And I'm so thrilled to see 83 participants and attendees on this session. I feel that it's my mission in life to be sharing what I know with as many people as possible so they can be successful in what they do. My journey to Canada started over 16 years ago. I came on a one-way ticket from Kazakhstan. I had experience studying for a brief time in the United Kingdom and France, but ultimately my parents decided to send me to Canada because it's a great country with tremendous opportunity for education, immigration, and so on. But my, I guess, it was very exciting in the beginning to come to a new country as a teenager and become independent and mature. But the reality hit me very hard. In the first 2 weeks I came, I was misjudged based on my accent and appearance as an international student by a store manager who thought that my family is mafia. And I went to a store to inquire about purchasing a jacuzzi tap because my dad was running a fitness center at that time. So I was just a curious international student, went to a store and was really misjudged. I was very disappointed. It was really, really difficult for me. And a week later, I was hunted down by a gang, threatening me with really ugly and scary words, telling me to get out of Canada because I'm not welcomed here. And that was very difficult in the first 2 weeks, being so hard hit by the reality. And at that point in time, I was crying. I was very upset. And I could either tuck my tail between my legs and pack and go back to Kazakhstan saying, well, Canada is not for me, it's not welcoming, and so on and so forth. Or I could stand up and persevere and succeed, which was my choice. And taking one step at a time, building a network, networking, developing strong academic skills. I ultimately became successful in what I do, in my studies, in my work, in my life in Canada. And now I feel it's my mission to be sharing this knowledge with agents, students, and parents. One thing I would like to mention, and I guess in this opening remarks, is that I'm grateful to my agent. I, like no one, appreciate the work that the agents do around the world to guide parents, guide students on selecting the right institution for them, guiding them through the visa process, and making sure that they successfully enroll in their dream school and end up going through the educational process in Canada. So thanks to my agent that I'm in Canada, and now I'm a proud Canadian.
That's great. And I'm sorry to hear that you had that unwelcoming experience when you first arrived in Canada. I know that some of these situations do happen. Canada is considered a really friendly and accepting and welcoming country, but you know, there are people everywhere in the world who are less welcoming, and it's unfortunate you encountered them so early in your stay. Why are international students so important to the Canadian economy and society from your perspective?
Yeah, and I think to your earlier point, Donna, I think, well, in my situation is very, could be different, and Canadians are extremely welcoming. The point is that for any new international student, for anyone in a new environment, you have a honeymoon phase where you're so excited to be in the new country. And then something happens, the reality hits you. So in my case, it was being misjudged by other people based on my accent, which forced me to work on my accent, to integrate, to look for opportunities. But for someone else, it might be something small like food or, I don't know, boyfriend, girlfriend. I don't know. It could be anything. It's just what I'm trying to say. The reality is that for the students, there will be a very hard time within the first 90 days or so when they will encounter culture shock. It could be something academically that they might be asked to leave the school. It could be anything. But ultimately, how do you face the reality, stand up for yourself, and put what it takes to be successful? So that kind of the response. In terms of the overall picture, I think the international students play a tremendous role, a very important role for the Canadian economy and society. On the economic side, international students contribute over $21 billion to the Canadian economy. This is huge. This is a huge investment into the country, and Canada takes it very seriously. I think that's important. On the social front, I would say many students they come as students, but ultimately they should see themselves as future employees, employers, and meaningful members of the Canadian diverse society. And I think that's very important when you decide to choose to study in Canada, when you take the necessary steps to apply, to prepare for jobs. All of this comes together, that you see the big picture.
Yeah, I think so many people are in this country do rely on international students for their employment, for and you know, we with so many teachers. I'm a teacher myself, part-time, so I see the transition in my classes have become so much more international, and they bring so much to the classroom as well. What is the greatest strength that you see international students have?
Yeah, I think one of the greatest strengths that international students have, and they should acknowledge that they have this, is the fact that they're adaptable. I think being adaptable in the current world is so important. And studying abroad is not for everyone. It requires determination, it requires strong will, it requires a strong character to decide and to go and study abroad. Once you have studied abroad, or once you arrive to Canada as an example, being adaptable and going through this tough process of adapting is developing a certain characteristic inside of you that will serve you for a lifetime. And for me, it has been certainly well, I would say one of the greatest strengths that I've developed as a former international student. I recall at one of the interviews I had for a big multinational corporation, they asked me a tricky question. They asked me, Boris, if you were to be an animal, what type of animal would you be? And I said, well, without a shadow of a doubt, I'm a chameleon. I think I would say that many international students are chameleons. They are forced to adapt to the new environment without losing their own identity, but becoming adaptable and integrating into the new environment to be successful. So being adaptable is a #1 strength that international students have or will have once they go through the academic process and the social integration. And they should use it to their advantage throughout their lifetime and during their applications for jobs in Canada.
Well, I love that response, Boris. That really ties back to your earlier statement about the culture shock that students will experience when they first arrive. And so that adaptability that you're referring to definitely has to emerge and become really strong. And it's a skill that they do take into a lifetime. And as someone who's worked in the international field in a senior role for many, many years, one of my weaknesses, as in my own role, was the lack of language capacity that I had. And so I did spend my career hiring people who had other language skills, and to make up for my shortcomings. And they say you should never hire people like yourself. You should hire people with different skills. And I would say that a lot of the people I've hired were previously international students. And one thing I would notice is that adaptability skill that you refer to. So I think you're quite right. I think it is a skill that students develop and really bring through the rest of their career with them. So
100%,
so great recognition there. What are the weaknesses and how can they overcome them?
I think that's very important to know, talk about weaknesses and how to strategize and overcome them. So I think one of the biggest, let me share statistics here first. So research shows that international students earn $10,000 less shortly after graduation in comparison to Canadian graduates. And that's not okay. Just by the fact that you're an international student and you earn less, that's a big issue, right? And so when you look deeper and ask a question, well, why this is a fact? Why you have two groups of students? You have Canadian graduates and international students graduating from the same institution. International students earn significantly less, close to $10,000. So why is that? And so I think there are a number of things to this. So the one greatest weakness that international students is a lack of network and networking skills. So by the nature of Canadian graduates, they have their parents here, they have network that they've developed during their high school studies, for example, their families have the network, and also the networking skills. And I think those are the two things that are very important to acknowledge. They can be overcome, they can be managed, and I'll talk about this. But I think I'd like to highlight, and so all the participants on this webinar should take a note. You need to have network, because your network is your net worth. So that's important. And your networking skills. So how do you present yourself? How do you develop a personal brand for yourself? That's very important. So those are the two things. The third thing I would say is that what I noticed during my career in education and being an employer and employee myself, I think what I see, international students tend to sell themselves short. And this is a problem. They don't market themselves very well. When they come into an interview, they say, oh, I'm an international student from a disadvantaged position. I might not have the permanent residency yet, but they really need to position themselves as and highlight their value. And so that's very critical. Emphasizing the value you deliver to your employer, being multilingual, to Donna's point. So now, all the participants know, so if you speak multiple languages in a Canadian multicultural, multilingual society, it's a huge asset. The fact that you're adaptable is very, very important to highlight. So I think these are the few things that is worth keeping in mind. And one thing I would also tie in here is, I'll talk more about it, is the fact that Canadian students tend to have mentors. They have developed the mentors in their lifetime, their parents being their mentors, their high school teachers being their mentors. But international students are very reserved and may not completely grasp the value of having a right mentor at the right time to help you go to the next level, whether it's to the next level from a B to an A in your studies, or to go from a part-time job to a full-time job, to an internship, and so on and so forth. So those are the few things I'd like to highlight on the weakness front, but these are the weaknesses that can be medicated and used to students' advantage.
Yes, great response. I love especially your statement, your network is your net worth. I think that's a really valuable statement. And I think agents, parents, and students should know that even Canadians can struggle with having a good network. You know, some people who are really shy might not be able to utilize their network in the same way. So I think the tips that you have for students and in terms of how do you build that network and how do you use that network will be really incredibly important to them as well. Why did you decide to write this book?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. Over the years, I've been asked for advice, for strategies and tips as somebody who lived, worked in Canada, and I've been asked by prospective students, by current students, by agents, by parents, you name them, and many have been asking. And I've been, gladly offering my advice, whether it's at the student fair or Skype or Zoom. But then one day I realized, well, if my information, my knowledge, my wisdom is valuable, I should sit down and go through an exercise of writing a book. So I'm very excited to have published this book just 3 weeks ago. It came out on Amazon and also available on my website. I'll tell you more about this. And shortly after it was released, it became a bestseller on Amazon, which is, I think, I'm very proud of it. It means that there are students worldwide, there are parents, there are agents who see value in this book. And in this book, I talk about the full student life cycle, which is very important. From the moment you start asking yourself a question, should I go study abroad or not? I mean, studying abroad is not for everyone. So you should go through this process of self-reflection and understanding, what does it mean, right? I provide advice in this book, what you can do before you even decide to go and study on a long-term academic program. Then I talk about, well, what do you need to do before you arrive to Canada? How do you choose the right agent? So I'm a huge supporter of agents. Working with students, that's very, very important, but selecting the right agent is very important. And I offer advice both to the students, the parents, and the agents, how to find the right fit for your agent and for your clients. I think the fit is so important. And then I go into very granular things about, well, what to pack, how to open a bank account, all those little things that are relevant in the initial stages. Applying to a dream school, getting into a dream school. I ran the admissions committee for the Schulich School of Business, so I know all the secrets of ins and outs of admissions process, and I share this in the book as well. And then I go more into, well, how you can be a successful student during your studies. I'm very fortunate to have graduated with 2 degrees, and both I got distinction in them, meaning I got excellent grades. That wasn't easy, but understanding that how it works in the Canadian setting I feel is my responsibility to share with students, parents, agents. And then I go all the way to, well, how do you land your dream job? How do you start with an internship, with a part-time job, with a full-time job, all the way to becoming a Canadian citizen, who I am right now. So going through this, it took me 16 years to figure out, and I don't think people on this webinar should wait 16 years to learn what I've learned. You can read my book, you can go through some trainings I offer, and then off you go. You're all ready to go and benefit from my 16 years of wisdom.
Wow, that's great. I mean, I think you're so right. It's so helpful for all of us when we're endeavoring on a new experience to be able to listen to the wise and experience of people who've pioneered before us. So I think it's a great, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what strategies and tips can you offer to international students, parents, and agents affected during this pandemic.
Yeah, thank you, Donna, for questions. So there are 3 specific strategies and tips that I believe are critical at this time. So I'll go into details on all those 3. But before I do, I love putting things into perspective, and I like to use using different props. I like props. So to make it more exciting and more engaging, we have 135 attendees on this webinar. This is super cool. This is super exciting. I brought a little tool. So this is the tool I have here. Let's make it interactive and visual as much as possible. So this is a measuring tape, and so we'll use the inches for the purposes of this demonstration. And what I want to really highlight here is the value of time, especially at the time of pandemic, at the time when our reality has changed and now we're living in a new reality. I mean, I've enjoyed having my son going to daycare, and now he is at home, and my wife and I needs to take turns and working remotely, and this just completely different reality. And it's not easy for anyone. I mean, I sympathize with the agents who now need to manage their business in a different way, with the students and parents who now have different questions. But let's put things into perspective first. So we'll use this measuring tape. You have number 1 and number 60 at the end of this measuring tape. So these these dates represent years of life. So I'm 32, so I'll take let me make it more visual here. So I'll use 32, and I'll take my second prop that I'm using here today. Let's use it. So let me do that. So I lived 32 years of my life. 16 of them have been in Canada. So I guess almost half of my life I lived in Canada. So I have 0 to 60. And why do we use 60 for the purposes of this demonstration? Well, I think generally people have the active years of their life between 0 and 60, and then after 60, that's when people start thinking about retirement. And you generally don't take you don't ask questions, you don't start thinking about studying abroad or immigrating to a new country after you're 60. So you generally take those big decisions in your life, your risky decisions in your life, between somewhere 0 and 60. And after 60, you want to settle in, and well, you can still have active lifetime active lifestyle after 60 by all means. But what I want to say is that you probably are thinking now, what should you do? What strategies you need to apply in your life so you're successful in the time you have available? So here's what we have, right? So in my case, I have 32 to 60. Well, guess what? About 1/3 of our life, we spend sleeping, right? So let me take 1/3 of the remaining time, and so this is how much time I like sleeping. I sleep about 6 hours each night. I practice Vipassana in the morning. I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day, but I enjoy sleeping, and I go to bed by 10. So about 1/3 of my remaining life will be used for resting. And so let's look what I have left here. So I have 42 to 60. That's how much time I have left, right? So let's think. Well, about 1/4 of our life we spend working. So let's say you have a 9 till 5 type of job, your daytime job, right? And so I'm very fortunate to have a job that I love tremendously, but still I have to take about 1/4 of what is here and dedicate it to my daytime employment, right? So this is how much time I have left. Okay, well now let's think about hygiene is important. Working out is important. I enjoy working out. I compete in triathlons. So if I take all the time I need to, to look after my hygiene and to exercise, that's probably another 3 years of time, right, in total. So this is how much time I have left. Okay, well now let's think about good habits and bad habits. I've been just talking about essential time you need to just go up until you're 60. So we all have good habits and bad habits. But before I talk about good habits and bad habits, I'll talk about relationships. So I love spending time with my son. Now I tend to spend more time with him than usually. But let's say I spend about 1.5 years with my son in total, actively, and maybe another 1.5 to 2 years with my wife, who I love a lot. So this is how much time I have left, right? Just putting things in perspective. Now going back about talking about good habits and bad habits. I have a bad habit. I spend time on social media. My social media, which I am obsessed about, is LinkedIn. But before even that, I love traveling. And so Donna mentioned in my introduction that I'm an expert in miles and points. I know the strategies behind on how to collect and use points to travel around the world. So let's say once we can travel again, I'll probably spend a year researching different travel deals, how it can go from one place to another place. In the last 6 years, I've been to over 60 countries, both for work and pleasure. So that's my researching of travel deals. And if I'm lucky, I'll spend another 1.5 years traveling. So this is how much time I have left. And then let's think about, well, toxic relationships, right? So friends and not so good friends. So people who get into our life, but we don't really enjoy spending time with them. And we won't call them friends, but let's call them people who are toxic and who suck energy out of you. Well, we all have those people in our lives. So let's say we kind of have to spend some time, but it's a choice we make. So this leaves me with actually just about 3 years of doing something that is really, really meaningful to me. And that puts really things into perspective. We think about, here's one thing I would like to say. It's not the lack of resources what's the problem. The problem is that people are not resourceful enough. Time is a resource and probably the most important resource we have. But it's how you spend your time, how resourceful you are, how you are able to get the relevant information in the right time. And the fact that you're on this webinar and you're listening to me, to my wisdom, my knowledge, the fact that you're listening to Donna and her wisdom and her knowledge is really helping you. I mean, I would argue this is a good investment of your time versus, researching information and answering trivial questions to someone else on Facebook. So if you are doing something on Facebook right now and not paying attention, I know who you are, right? So just to put things into perspective. And that's what I'm getting really, really obsessed about, and also a bit frustrated when students tell me, oh, I have so much free time on my hands. You don't really have that much free time. So now going back to the top three strategies and tips I'd like to share with you. And in the context of the time you have available, I advise you to be very, very selective of the information you take and the actions you take. So my strategy number one, I highly recommend to use this time that you have available, less with people, more in front of the screen, is to invest in getting micro credentials. I think micro credentials are so, so important. And these days, you can get them for free or close to free. And yes, university degrees and associate degrees and programs and diplomas are very important. There are benefits in terms of transitioning to a new country, immigration, all of this is so important. But if you have the time, and you do have the time, invest your time in getting micro credentials. And I'll share two examples with you from my life. When I started my undergraduate degree, so I finished high school in Canada, grade 11 and grade 12. Then I started my Bachelor's of Commerce from the University of British Columbia, UBC in Vancouver. And I was, as you know, I'm an athletic person. I like working out, but I also want to find ways, I wanted to find ways to monetize my passion and make some money. So I went to the gym and I asked to speak to a manager whether I can get a job in the gym so I can work out for free and maybe make some money while I'm working in the gym. And I unfortunately was refused. I would say that I don't have enough credentials to work in the gym. And I said, well, what type of credentials do I need to have to work in the gym? And they said, well, you need to look into becoming a personal trainer. And that's the path I took. I went on, I got certified as a personal trainer. It didn't take me too long, a couple months or so. And then I went and applied for a job. I got the job. I started as a personal trainer, and then the management saw me not just as a great personal trainer, but they saw me as a great manager. So I was promoted to become a director of marketing. And I was not only just training people, I was also selling membership, which was a great job after my second year in university, paid great money, got great commission, and learned, improved my English, integrated in society, and it's all due to getting a micro credential. So that's might not be very practical right now, but the one that I can tell you that is practical is getting certified in Salesforce. And I think Salesforce is a phenomenal platform that provides tremendous opportunities. Salesforce is a customer relationship management platform. This is what the top Fortune 500 companies are using. This is the platform that many agents and companies and educational institutions in Canada that are starting to use. And so when I started my job at Schulich, at the Schulich School of Business at York University, there was no CRM. There was no proper way to manage relationships with students who apply. And I decided to find out, well, how can I become certified in this? And I became certified Salesforce administrator. I learned all the ins and outs. It was free. You can do it on a Trailhead platform from Salesforce, and which actually allowed me to progress very quickly in my role at working at university. And then subsequently, I got headhunted by Deloitte Consulting, and my job was to travel around the world and to integrate Salesforce as a platform at universities, colleges, and public institutions, municipalities, which was very exciting. And this is all due to a micro-credential, and this went very well hand in hand with my academic degree. So since you have the time right now on your hands, you may have more time, whether you're an agent, a student, parent, I encourage you to invest into getting micro-credentials, and Salesforce micro-credential is a fantastic one that opened up a lot of doors for me. So that's a strategy number one, get micro-credential. Strategy number two, and this ties into the greatest weakness that international students have. Start building your personal brand and network right now. And the best way to do that is doing it on LinkedIn. So I'll talk about this. So maybe worthwhile saying, well, what is what is personal brand? The way I would define personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So that's a good way to explain. So if Donna is not in the room and somebody asks me, well, who's Donna? This is how you will describe Donna. Donna is a professional in international education. She's great working with institutions and agents. She's so reliable, so professional. That's her personal brand. That's how I would describe Donna. So every student, parent, every agent who are attending this webinar should ask this question: how would they be described by their fellow colleagues, their peers, in a social setting? And so I'm a huge believer in personal brand. I dedicated a full chapter in this book about how to build a personal brand, what are the elements of personal brand, and what are the resources available. And I think the best platform to demonstrate your personal brand is LinkedIn. LinkedIn helped me immensely in my job search and my network development. If you don't have LinkedIn right now, after we finish this webinar, go ahead and create your LinkedIn profile. If you already have one, or you will soon have one, I invite you right now to go and add me as your LinkedIn connection, because we will become part of one network, and you can also benefit from the connections I have in my network. And I'm sure Donna would be gladly to accept your request to be a LinkedIn connection. So that's very important. What's important to keep in mind as well is there are certain, I guess, certain steps required to successfully build a LinkedIn profile and successfully promote yourself on LinkedIn. And it can be great in terms of searching prospective clients for agents. And in case of students, it's really looking for your dream school, your enrollment into school, and also ultimately getting a job. I think right now is a great time to start building up your LinkedIn presence, writing LinkedIn articles. There's so much you can do on LinkedIn.
Oh, we're just having a little technical issue here.
Okay, are we back online? Can you hear me? We got a little technical. Okay, so it's good. I guess I can continue. Maybe we lost Donna for a second, but let me continue here. So that was my second tip. Invest in building your personal brand and start by doing it on LinkedIn. That's a very important piece. It actually nicely ties in with my first point about getting micro-credentials, because the best place to showcase your micro-credentials is LinkedIn, okay? So that's number two. And so finally, the third and one of the most important strategies that students, parents, agents should have in this present time is finding a mentor. Having a mentor is so important. And I was very fortunate that I got a mentor. I got mentored at the right time during my studies at high school, at universities, in my first job, in my second job, and so on and so forth. It's so important. So having a mentor, somebody you can go and ask for an advice, is critical. And now is a great time to actually go reach out and find a mentor that is a good fit for you. So when I was a high school student, and as I shared with you, developing my English skills, I wasn't fluent in English at that time, and getting rid of accent or polishing my English, let's use that word, I actually went to the school principal and I said, well, Mr. Smith, can you please be my mentor, because I need to develop my public speaking skills, my English. And he was very happy to do that. And thanks to Mr. Smith, who was the school principal at the time, he actually took me to public speaking competition, which helped me improve my English. Then I got a new mentor during my university studies who helped me get my internship, and so on and so forth. So this is so critical, and getting a mentor is so important. And this is the role that I like to play for all the international students who are on their way to Canada, who are already in Canada. I would love to be their mentor, to be your mentor, and to share my wisdom, to share the tools, the strategies I have for students to be successful. So that's the few things I wanted to share with you in the context of the current situation. So maybe just to summarize, and we're waiting to see whether Donna will join us back. I'm happy that 136 people are still staying on this webinar. Is that one? Invest in getting the right micro-credentials that will get you the job. Salesforce is a fantastic micro-credentials, whether you're technical or non-technical person. The starting salary in Canada for a Salesforce administrator is 60,000 Canadian dollars, and it goes well hand in hand with whichever degree you decide to pursue. That's number one. Number two, build your personal brand and start networking on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great platform to do that, and there are many nuances with the LinkedIn platform, how to do it effectively and efficiently. And I will use this opportunity to invite you to add me on LinkedIn as your connection. I would love to stay in touch and see what you're doing, how you're growing, what type of information you're sharing of value. And then finally is the third thing, is a mentor. Find a mentor. And so right now I'm running a mentorship program for a group of marketing students, and I teach them specifically about the job hacking tools and strategies on how to land a dream job in Canada using Salesforce as the right platform to do that. So those are just three strategies I'd like to share with you. I wonder whether Donna is back. Maybe there are some technical difficulties, but
I'm just coming back in, and I'm sorry that I've lost you there for a few minutes.
no problem. You're perfectly back at the right time. So I just shared my 3 tips and strategies, and I summarized them, which is great.
Oh, super. Well, I am very sorry for that little hiccup there, and I missed out on that last tip, but I did appreciate hearing how important the value of time was. I thought your technique for showing us how short our life really is um, really critical for us. And I think it's important for us to remember that we need to use our time really wisely. And I loved the connection and the suggestion that we can use this time with during COVID, where we're at home more and using technology to earn credentials. I think that was such stellar advice for young people who, and for agents and for all of us really, that there's always something new for us to learn, and how we can take this time to learn something new that we can put into the workplace is really great. I missed some of your tips on your LinkedIn networking, and I thought that was going to be something I was really looking forward to, so I'm kind of disappointed that I missed that, but I'm sure I can listen to the recording later and hear what you had to say, so thank you so much. I'm just curious, have I lost you again, or I'm just curious?
No, I'm here.
Okay, great. I'm just curious if you can share with us how people who are in the audience can get your book.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I will use this opportunity to maybe answer something for you, Donna. So in terms of LinkedIn and tying it into with a book. So one thing that really helped me to sit down and write a book, and I can talk about writing a book and becoming an Amazon bestseller for quite some time, but that's a different conversation. I think we live in a tremendous time to become a thought leader. And there are many ways to become a thought leader. You can speak at conferences, you can write a book, what I believe in there, and everything in between. One thing that I think is a great way for a student, an agent, or parent is to show their opinion, show their point of view, is doing it on LinkedIn through an article. You can write posts, but investing time in sitting down and writing a thoughtful article about something that you believe in is so important. And I can tell you, writing articles helped me a lot to prepare myself to writing a book, develops the writing skills and the structure, the outline, the thinking process. But it actually really helps in your business. So if you're in the business of finding a job, you can write an article about, well, why you should be hired, or why getting a job in marketing is so important. And this is the advice that some of my mentees in my mentorship program have used, and it actually helped them to land their job. So if you're looking for a job, if you're preparing to transition, let's say you're looking to get into a dream school, your dream school, writing an article related to that will really help you. If you're looking to get a job, writing an article about how to get a job and tie it into you becoming an employee is really important. And I think one other thing I would say for agents, writing an article on LinkedIn about who you are, what you believe in, about your values, providing some thought leadership is so great. So those are some things. And Donna, for you, I think this might be a good opportunity to sit down and write a brief article about what you think is important in this present time, because your network will benefit from this. And when they come back to check out your LinkedIn profile, it will be there. So that's kind of one thing I wanted to share. So now I will answer the opportunity, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity to share in the last 45 minutes or so things that I know. There is so much more, but we don't have that much time. So I would like to offer something special to the 133 attendees we have on this webinar. I invite you to go to the link provided, and we will paste this link again in Q&A just in a second, is to get an ebook for, get my ebook, Start Right, Success Habits for International Students, on this website. Yeah, I actually also invested time in building a portal. On this portal, you will find a lot of exercises. It's on my measuring tape presentation, but I like coaching exercises. And so this book comes with a portal that has different worksheets, has a recommended books. I love reading books, as Donna mentioned in my introduction. Personal development and business books. So the best books that I've written and I've read in my lifetime, they're all listed on the portal. There's information on how to open the best bank accounts in Canada for international students, what to bring, how to apply for scholarships. There's so much I put into this portal, so it's all one place to start right your journey in Canada. So that's the second thing. And this third thing, there is a private community for everyone who has this book, who read this book, and all of this come in a bundle. You get the ebook, you get access to the Start Right portal, which I build and constantly update with information I think is of value to students, parents, and agents. And finally, there is a private community on Facebook and LinkedIn where people interact, share their tips and strategies. So this community of thoughtful international students and professionals can grow. And you can get it all for a price of latte, for $4.75, by going to the link startrightbook.com. And this is a dedicated link for the attendees from this webinar. So take your action today. But there's one more thing I wanted to talk about. And I was thinking, well, what else can I do? What else can I do to incentivize people on this webinar to invest some money? I mean, we're talking about a lot of money here that will not, that will help them. How would I say? They don't need to spend 16 years of their life learning what I know, because I put everything in the book, I put everything in the portal. There is nothing for me to hide, and there is a private community to discuss. This is all available for you right here, right now. But there's one more thing I wanted to make exclusively available for a small group of 10 attendees of this webinar. Do you want to hear this? Okay, well, I guess thumbs up. You cannot type, but thumbs up, because I'm going to tell you exactly what a special offer I want to make for the attendees in this webinar. Donna, would you mind going to the next slide?
Okay, I think we did.
Just if you go to the next slide, I will talk about a very special offer I want to make for the attendees of this webinar.
Okay, can you see it now?
Yes, perfect. Okay, so for the first 10 people who take an action today, I'm going to offer something very, very special. So what I believe is that the first 90 days in Canada are so important, whether you are physically in Canada or you're taking your courses online. The first 90 days are so transformational. And I told you about my culture shock, how I was misjudged, how I had to figure out, how I had to understand the academic honesty rules and banking and accommodation. There's so much going on. The first 90 days are so important. So I developed a program which is called 90 Days to Success program. And this is the program that I teach for students before they come to Canada, so their 90 days are so successful, because that's so pivotal. I know so many people drop off in the first semester just because they're not able to integrate. So I developed that program that I teach, and I invite you to join this program, because if you're a parent, if you're a student, you will benefit so much. But also as an agent, you will learn so much from firsthand, from somebody who actually blazed this trail, who went from an international student to being Canadian. And I teach you in this program, and I also teach in this program how to set yourself up for success on landing an internship and your part-time job within the first 90 days in Canada. So this program is available for you. The value for this program is $695. And I want to give you 4 bonuses, because I am a strong believer in taking a massive action. So I talked about Salesforce as a micro-credential. So I developed a training. It's a 3-hour training that is recorded, that is available for you. It's valued at $495. And in this training, I talk about what Salesforce is, how to get the credential, and how to market yourself on the job market with this credential, which allowed me to get this job. So that's bonus number 1. It's a training that is available for you if you take the action today. The bonus number 2, I talked about LinkedIn. I have a special training where you can learn how to win with LinkedIn. It's a 1-hour training. The value of that training is $297. You learn about writing an articles, about connecting with the right people, building your network, asking for coffee chats, well, I guess virtual coffee chats, and I provide templates in this training as well. Bonus number 3 is that, and I think it's priceless, for you taking action today, you will get a 30 minutes coaching call with me, and one-on-one, I will know where you're at right now, where you want to get, and I will provide a tailored advice for you, whether you're an agent, a student, a parent, on how to achieve your goals, wherever you are in your life. And finally, the bonus number 4, I will send you a signed paperback copy of this book, so which I think is priceless as well. I'll sign it for you. I'll mail it to you. I put it for you in the mailbox, and you will get this book with all those wonderful bonuses. So the value of this package is $1,500, but for you today, it's $129. If you go on the link provided, it's in the chat, you will be able to get your ebook, you will be able to get your Win with LinkedIn training, you will be able to get your 90 Days to Success program, all for the price of $129. And you will get 3 bonuses. You will get Salesforce training, you will get a coaching call with me, and you will get a signed paperback copy. It will take a couple of weeks to arrive, but you will have the ebook to read and get all the wisdom and knowledge from me. So I'm so grateful for all of you sticking in, and I cannot wait to stay in touch with you and share more and more value with you.
Great, thank you. Very exciting. Well, this leads us to our question and answer period of our session, and so let's just, this is a great time to ask any questions that you might have. And I'm just looking at the question screen. You do have an option to, in your chat line, be able to ask questions. I have one here for you, Boris, and the question is, what content do you suggest needs to be included in marketing, advertisements, or print material?
And this is a question from an agent, I presume, right?
I think maybe so.
Yeah, I think this is a great question. Would you mind repeating the question?
Yes, it is from an agent, and the question is, what content do you suggest needs to be included in the marketing and advertisements on print media and social media?
Yeah, I think, well, you need to look through a lens of value, how you can offer value in your communications, right? So people first and foremost need to see value for them before they buy something from you, right? And so hopefully through this webinar, I delivered value to you. I shared my knowledge, I shared secrets and tips and strategies. And if you saw value, I front loaded the value to you, then it's you build the relationship, and then you take the action, and you might buy the book, you might take you might take a greater action, which I encourage you to do. So when you're doing posts on social media, think of ways you can add value to your audience. So maybe you learned something today from talking to a school. Maybe you learned something from this webinar, right? So you are a thought leader. So it makes sense for you to go on social media and write a post that's something that you've learned that you believe will be of value to your following. For example, getting micro-credential. This is something you learned today. You think it will be of value to your following, write it in social media, and as people start following you, start reading, start connecting with you, they will be more than happy to do business with you because you offer them something of value. So this is something I believe in. I really believe in over-delivering. There is a great book called Over-Delivering. And if you can over-deliver above and beyond what people expect, doesn't matter whether it's a webinar, one-on-one conversation, a post, then people will buy from you and trust you.
Great, thanks. Boris, I'm wondering if you could offer some suggestions to or comments on the value of online learning during this period of COVID. So, as you know, many institutions have been forced to move to online learning, and this might be a new shift and a change for sure for students. I wonder what you could offer with respect to starting your education using online learning.
From a student's perspective, right?
From a student's perspective, yes.
Yeah, I think that surely is a transition that all of us have to make, whether you're teaching online. I mean, I'm teaching online. I much more prefer teaching in person, if possible, because that energizes you. But I think that's one thing that students need to learn how to. There are many things that institutions need to learn how to deliver great online programming, but let's talk from a student's perspective. I think one important recommendation I would make is to turn on the camera, because that forces you to stay focused and stay and be presentable. I mean, build your personal brand. So make sure that you're dressed professionally. I mean, like for example, for me, it's tough to manage space where you need to do a transition. You can't go to work, you can't go to school. So make sure you have a dedicated space where you study, right? So I have a dedicated space where I learn, where I teach. I don't eat here, I don't do anything else, I don't watch movies, I only work here. So one advice would be, find a dedicated place if you can, that would be a place where you will be learning. Second thing, get in the habit of turning on the camera. Professor may or may not ask you to do that, but get in the habit of doing this, because I see the engagement is so much higher from the students who turn on the camera and pay close attention. And I think the third tip I would suggest is blocking off distractions. And there are great tools, I share about those tools in the book, where you can block off distractions like Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram during the time when you need to be focused on learning. And I think this will help you to how would I say, to transition and be a better digital learner.
Good points. And I think I could add to that a little bit myself as someone who is a teacher working in institutions, working at an institution in Canada as an instructor part-time. All of my classes that were face-to-face, like everyone else, have gone to digital. And one of the things that I've learned this term is that it's really important for us to be a little forgiving of each other and also to be really honest. So I think it's really important for students to know this is new for teachers as well. They're not used to this, and they're really ramping up to learn to do the best job they can. And at the same time, I've experienced that students have done really well. So for an example, I'm teaching a class that's what we call asynchronous, which means that you don't have to be there at the same time. But what I'm finding, and I was really pleased about, is about 70% of my students are actually attending during my lecture. So not only am I online recording my lecture, but 70% of my students are attending. And even though they don't have to be, they are. And I really think that's important to be there if you can. And the reason why is because it gives you that opportunity to ask live questions. It gives you the opportunity to share what you know and to really get engaged in the class. So I think there's some tips that I would give students for sure. And my last comment would be that with that measuring tape exercise that Boris did, and shows us how short of time that we have and how valuable our time is, that I would encourage people to continue with their studies, even if it is online for this next semester or two, because I think it's important to continue your education, not take a big break. I think when we take a big break, we can get a little lazy, or we can kind of start to give up or get discouraged. So I really think sticking with the plan and carrying on and getting your education, even though it's a little different than we all expected, is in our best interest. Don't waste this time. Keep going and study. And institutions and their instructors are getting better and better and better every week because they want to do a good job for you, students. So I think those are important things to think about too. We have a question here from another agent who's saying, what do you think is going to change in international education post-COVID-19, especially in Canada? So Boris, get your crystal ball out. What do you think the future holds?
Well, I think digital learning, blended program will become a norm. I think institutions are conservative on adapting new technologies. So this new reality is forcing institutions to adapt to new forms of teaching. And so this is, I think it's a good thing, right? Just sitting in the lecture for a long period of time might not be good. So it's good. It's forcing the institutions to adapt new technologies. It's forcing instructors to teach courses in a new way and using different modalities of teaching. And then it's also helping students to transition and use their time wisely, right? So arguably you might have more time now because you don't need to travel. You don't need to travel to work. You don't need to travel to school. You are more confined. You know, there is less time that is required for transit. The challenge for everyone will be to use that time wisely, right? And that was the point here I wanted to make. I think what is also important is that, let me think here. I think international, what I think is important, traveling will still exist. I think it's important to travel. It's important to travel overseas. I surely feel a little bit sad that I cannot travel as much as I used to. So the forms of traveling will be a little bit different. Maybe it's domestic travel. Maybe it's traveling within Canada, right? So all those things just will become a new norm. And this is fine. We're all adaptable. That's what makes humans so special. We might be upset for a little bit. We might be frustrated. It's uncomfortable. But it's normal. We need to adapt, and we will adapt, and we'll be very, very successful in what we do.
I think that's a great. I think those are great comments and suggestions on this topic, and it's a topic that, as someone who's been hosting a few webinars and different, being engaged in different kinds of media events where these kinds of questions are coming up regularly. The question is, what about after COVID? What do we think is going to happen? And I think what I would like to add to your comments is there's one thing that I know that will not change after COVID, and that is people will need to get an education, people will need to get good jobs, and they will need to grow and emerge into productive adults and human beings who are able to earn an income for their families. That is not going to change. So yes, education will change in some way, but as our needs post-COVID, our needs are not going to change in terms of needing to make sure that we're ready for employment and that we're preparing for employment and preparing to be our best that we can be in our future. So I don't think it's going to make a huge difference to education other than maybe the modality of education. I think there will be more blended learning. One of my experiences as a teacher is that students have told me that they love the fact that they can listen to my lecture a second time. So they're attending my class and then they're going back and listening to my lecture again. And I think, wow, I never thought of that. And some have said to me, when we go back to the classroom, will you continue to record your lectures? Because they want that for study purposes. So we're learning that there's some good things about this technology that we're using today as well. I did have one other question up here that I saw that I missed, and I wanted to go back.
I know we're over time, but I'm grateful for everyone sticking around.
Okay, great.
This last question.
Well, there's just okay, great. There's just one more question here. Previously, they had good ways for social media like Facebook marketing, and now all of this has changed in their country. And I think it's somebody from India who is making this question or comment. So what kind of ideas do you emphasize in marketing at this point through social media? And I'm not sure why you might not have access to mediums like Facebook and stuff like that. So but you know, that's kind of the question, that some of the, maybe it's the bandwidth and technology. We saw a little failure here.
Well, I mean, social media is a tool, right? So first of all, you need to think about strategy. And we tend to often jump to a tool because tools are usually very well promoted, not the strategy. So if you understand what your students, for example, are looking for, where are they interacting, how they're asking, where they're asking these questions, right? It doesn't have to be on social media. There are so many creative ways to engage with your prospective students. So for example, I mean, I remember, I'll use it an example from on behalf of a school, right? So when I worked at Schulich, we didn't know how to engage our alumni to provide us with referrals. to the programs we wanted to recruit. And so the way we did it, we built a form, and we messaged all the alumni saying we have a new alumni referral program. And the alumni referral program offered an application fee waiver to all the students prospective students who were recommended to apply through alumni referral. And also a student was guaranteed an interview if he or she was referred by an alumni from a program. And so the alumni saw that he or she is offering something of value to his or her network. So that that made sense for them to share this information to their social media channels, as an example, saying, well, if you apply to Schulich through this link for alumni, you will be able to get your application fee waived, and you will be able to get a guaranteed interview. And this is huge value to the student themselves. So alumni saw something of value of sharing to their family members or whatnot, and obviously the students saw value, and we saw as something of value as a school. So there are certainly very creative ways to think outside the box on how to build your business. I would love to discuss this with you. My offer to have a 30 minutes coaching session is available. So go take an action on my offer today, and we can talk about your business as well, because I worked with agents on behalf of an institution for quite some time.
That's great. And just to clarify, that that question came from Raj, who's from Nepal. So
Okay.
Thank you for joining us from Nepal. It's great to have you with us. And I think our time is over, so we'll start to wrap up. I just wanted to add to Boris's comment that I think engaging with your student network and your parent network as agents today is really important. Many agents invited some of their students, their prospective students, to come and join this through this section, to this session, to help them learn about, to help them learn a little bit about what they can expect and what they can do, and getting them prepared. And I think engaging your students in this kind of workshop shows them that you are interested in their success and in their future, and that you're willing to put some effort in getting them connected to resources and learning resources that they have. So I think that this is really important today as well. And so I think that's been really great. We had just one more question just to close, and we anticipate a spike of admissions post-COVID. And do you think universities will be overwhelmed, and what should be done for them? And I think because I work with 40 institutions, I might just take that question on myself for us, and feel free to add anything to it. MSM works with 40 partner institutions across the globe, the majority of being in Canada, but also many in the US, in the UK, and also a few in Europe. And we continue to grow every year. And what I would say to you is that these institutions are still working. They're all actually actively recruiting. Our team of MSM professionals are working with the agent network, with all of you agents, to make sure that you're continue to be informed about the institutions, that you're aware of programming, and their staff are ready and available. I encourage students and agents to keep on keeping on, and if they're interested in applying to institutions, apply now and get their applications processed as quickly as they can. Because institutions are available. Their staff are working, they haven't gone away. So I really do encourage people to continue to apply for their future and their education, and let their applications be processed. And the worst thing that can happen is their admissions will be delayed. So that's the worst thing that can happen, but many students will be able to start their education online. And I really encourage them to do that, because it's commitment towards your future, and it's working and working towards your future. So don't wait till post-COVID. Keep going, keep active, keep following your dreams, and your dreams will be realized.
Yeah.
So yeah. So with that, I just want to say thank you very much to our participants. You were just amazing, good questions. Boris, you were absolutely fabulous. It was just great to have you on this session today and to learn some of your tricks and tips, and especially I think the value of time. I'm getting closer to that, that 60 age group, so I think I've got to be really super careful about value. I loved your suggestion about the micro credentials. I think the better we can prepare ourselves for our futures and for specialty careers and just to be unique in individuals is so good. And your suggestions around publishing on LinkedIn as well are just so important, that young people today get engaged and agents get engaged, and that I get even more engaged. So I think these were all really great suggestions, and I thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me. I know it's really early in Vancouver, so thank you for waking up so early and hosting this great session. I hope everybody took away something and got some value from this 1 hour session. And so I wish everyone great success, and stay in touch. Add me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and get a copy of my book.
Yes, thank you. And we've got lots of little thank you notes coming on the screen here. So again, thanks to all our participants. I do want to just say one more thank you, and that is to the technical team behind us. Thank you for helping to kind of get us behind the scenes and even getting us up and running. And without you, we would not make this possible. So very much appreciated to everyone. Thank you so much. I'm going to close this session. Goodbye.
Thank you.